Hey everyone, welcome to week 8 of Tuesday Tips. Today's going to be a tip on how to use commutators in your last two centers. I guess I'll start off with if you don't already know what commutators are, for big cubes, they're just sets of moves that swap only two center pieces or very specific pieces on the centers. So for instance, if I have this case and I want to just swap these two center pieces, I can use this commutator to solve the centers. At the end of this video, I'll kind of go over quickly which commutators I use. There aren't too many, and they can be kind of pretty easily applied to various cases. So first off, I'll talk about 5x5 and commutators. Actually, on 5x5 last two centers, you'll never need to use commutators in order to solve them. So what you want to do for 5x5 last two centers is you want to solve your two centers, your bar centers, your two bars on the left side here. This should be done pretty intuitively. It's usually not too complicated. There are a couple advanced tricks in sort of finding the ideal case to save a couple moves, but there might be a video about that later. After solving your first two centers on the left here, you want to solve your last center by this is also still fairly intuitive. This case is very easy. It was a 3-move insert. Really, there are only 2 or 3 cases that you can get once you have your two centers solved. So what you want to do is kind of pair up two pieces. You should be able to then, after getting your first two edges, pair up two pieces to get in the last edge slot. This should be very intuitive. Either you're going to get a case that looks like this, or you're going to get a case that looks like this. So I mentioned earlier that on 5x5 centers you don't need commutators. I guess I'll actually rephrase that as I do use a commutator for this specific case, although you don't necessarily need to, which I'll explain on 7x7. So if you get this particular case, you're going to use a commutator to swap these two pieces, which is and then your alternative case is this. While you could use a commutator to swap these two pieces, which would be that's much less efficient than this. I don't know if it's a trick or an algorithm, but kind of this should look hopefully intuitive after you kind of do it a few times. But this is the algorithm you want to use. So yeah, 5x5, those are the only two cases after you get two pieces. When there's only one piece left, which getting to that point should be fairly intuitive. This, and then this, which I just showed you. On 6x6, what you're going to want to do for your last two centers is similar to 5x5. You're going to want to get to the point where you have 3 bars solved on the center in front or on top, depending on which orientation you like. Usually this is fairly simple. The first bar on the very left, very easy to do if you know how to solve centers. The second bar should also be pretty intuitive. The third bar might be a little tricky, but since you have freedom on this kind of slice here, you can just pair up these two center pieces very quickly, and then solving the edges should be kind of a trivial matter. For 6x6, however, you are definitely going to need to use a commutator in order to solve your last center. So here's kind of the method I used for solving the last bar on 6x6. What you want to do is manipulate your corners, because you have full freedom of kind of this slice, meaning your corners you can move to wherever you want. You're not going to be able to pair up your two centers without making a slice here, which you can't do, which is why you'll need the commutator. However, using intuition, you should be able to pair up your corners to where you can get two corners in the same bar along with one of your edges, and then insert here. So this should be your position, and then when you get to this point, you're going to want to use a commutator here. In some cases, when you get to this point, you'll find that you got lucky and these two edge pieces are already set together. In this case, it's just like a 5x5 center, and you can use this commutator here, or you might get a case similar to this. There's actually a recent thing I've been doing where you can, in some very specific cases, you can force the edges to be together. You can actually force. Whoops. You can force these two edge piece centers to be together based on your case when you make the third bar, but that's a much more complicated matter that I'll get to later. Alright, on 7x7, it's actually a little bit of a misconception that you need to use two commutators in some 7x7 cases. And I'll talk about this, which is a similar case to the 5x5. So in 7x7, you're going to want to solve your first 4 bars, and then you only need commutators in the last one. It might be even more trickier than on 6x6 to solve kind of the fourth bar. However, since you have freedom on this layer right here, you can pair up your now like corners, which are these two pieces, with your center here to make this 3 bar, and then using just the outer layer, this outer kind of set here, you can pair up the rest of the bar. That should hopefully be intuitive, and I'm not going to go into too much detail here on that. So for the last bar here, what's going to happen is that now you only have freedom in this kind of slice, but you have 3 pieces that in order to manipulate will have to be sliced on this slice. So the problem here is that a lot of times you're going to get to the point where you can't kind of set it up in one commutator. So I'll kind of show you an example. So here's a good example. So I'm solving for red now, or kind of the angle is solving for red, and you're always able to place the 2 corners in the same bar, and you're always going to be able to place these 2 corners around one of these 3 pieces. It just sometimes you're going to have two spots open that you weren't able to fill up based on the fact that you only have freedom here. So the option is, once you finish this last bar with the corners correct on one of these pieces, is you can do 2 commutators, or since you're on 7x7, and a special feature of even numbered cube or odd numbered cubes is that on odd numbered cubes you can actually match up. You can use odd numbered kind of the features of odd numbered cubes to match up the centers by because if you do a U or a M, U2 M prime, the centers maintained, but you swap this piece down to here. So you can use that as kind of an alternative to commutators. If your pieces are already kind of in this position, I would recommend using commutators. But if you get to a position where, let's see, let me see if I can get one quickly. If you get to a position like this where you haven't already grouped together your kind of almost bar in this last slot, you can quickly do M, U2, M prime, and match these 2 up, and then you're going to be able to make a bar that only requires 1 more commutator to solve. So yeah, there you go. I'd say I'd go talk about my commutators really quick. They're all pretty simple. I've shown you them. Kind of swap, so to swap the middles like this. Swapping a corner doesn't require a commutator, it's just swapping the edge is technically the same as swapping the middle. You hopefully will notice kind of the pattern. The only thing tricky, I guess, you can do is you can actually do multiple in one. So in this case, I'm going to commutate both of these to up here. And there's one last one that people often overlook on 6x6, is swapping these 2. It doesn't require to do 2, anything like that. You can just do yep.